We are getting set for MLS 2025 and what is shaping up to be the biggest season of MLS on Sorare ever. Sorare have really rolled out the red carpet, giving MLS its own dedicated competition as well as its own dedicated hot streaks and golden goal, Brucey bonus, beat the game modes on top of all the stuff that we've become accustomed to of fighting on the leaderboard for cards and cash and boxes and everything else that's going to go around it. In the video today, I'm going to be breaking down for you the top 5 clubs in MLS that no one has given any chance to as being a formidable stack, as being a play that can enhance whatever strategy you've already adopted or already got off the ground already. And with Sorare's early access double up promotion, where you're going to be getting the chance to win an extra card or some essence to produce some more cards from every purchase you make between now, essentially, and the 21st of February. This is the perfect opportunity to be building a roster on a budget that's going to be competing to fight across the leaderboards and all the beat the game modes, because one of the best things about MLS, in case you're new around here, is it's one of the most equal leagues across world football. The current champions LA Galaxy have had some of their biggest stars ripped out of their squad with no sign of real credible replacements. There has been no one retain the MLS Cup back-to-back wins since LA Galaxy did it over a decade ago. This season is going to be totally up for grabs. It could be anyone's game, and when it comes to playing SO5, when it comes to attacking the leaderboard, there's going to be more than one way to skin the cat at any point in the video today. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you're brand new to Sorare and you're looking to get stuck into this competition, you can do so by clicking on the link that's in the description of this video. By clicking on that link, you actually support me and all the content here at the channel. So if you get stuck, reach out and I'll help you out, of course. But by clicking on that link, you'll get yourself $50, pounds, euros, whatever your currency is, of market credit to go out and reinforce your squad once you've bought 5 players of any price. They can be as little as 50p or a pound, whatever, from instant buy or from auctions. It's the best way to sign up, and if you don't start your Sorare account by clicking on the link that's in that description, you're 50 quid, dollars, euros, whatever, behind everyone else. And for anyone that's watching this video that's going to be following along with MLS this year and wants to get a little bit of kit, wants to get a little bit of merch to go alongside their stack to support the club that they're backing this year, you can do so and support this channel by shopping at fanatics.com. There's a link in the description of this video that'll get you discount codes to all the brand new MLS gear out there, and it ships worldwide. So no matter where you are, you can find some merch, you can find some strips, get some names printed on the back using the link that's in the description of the video. And again, that link does support the content here at the channel, so I thank you in advance if you do so. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it, because there's a few different angles of approach when it comes to MLS. It seems to be the most popular strategy, the most popular theme that I'm seeing from Sorare managers across the globe here, is that people are looking for those DP purchases, those guys that are moving from Europe on a big designated player contract into any of the clubs in MLS. And a lot of the clubs at the moment are kind of reforming. There's a real kind of rebalance of power here. Some of the teams that have been kind of meme worthy for how bad they've been have actually recruited pretty well, and some of the stronger clubs maybe haven't quite recruited to the same level. But for me, I'm always more keen and more interested when it comes to MLS on the club, on the manager, on the sporting director, on the general direction of the squad and the club, because MLS is so even, there's not much that splits them, that for me personally, what I like for football and what kind of pulls me in with some teams is the story, is the journey they're going on, as well as who is the man at the helm, who is the guy steering the ship. And that's going to be the theme, that's going to be the angle of approach I'm taking on this video for the top 5 clubs that no one is really considering to be a bit of a power player. And the first club I'm going to take a look at actually kind of fits into the first bucket, the first category that most people have found themselves kind of window shopping with, and that's where are the DPs moving, where are the powerful players landing. But in this case, it's one of those ones where not everyone is totally sold on the move, and they're looking at the squad thinking they might not actually be up too much this year. But I've scratched beneath the surface and I've got a little bit more optimism than maybe the average MLS fan out there for FC Dallas, and one of the main reasons for that is their manager Peter Lussin. Now, if you don't know, Peter Lussin is a guy I barely remember from growing up and playing computer games and all the rest of it, but as you can see, his playing career was very formidable, playing for the likes of Paris Saint-Germain, Celta Vigo, Atletico Madrid, before eventually ending up at FC Dallas. And he's actually been there for a fair little while as a caretaker manager, an assistant manager, and coming through the youth academy. He took over from their last manager on the 9th of June, so I'm not too sure if he overseen this one each draw here with Minnesota, but as you can see, straight away from his appointment, they started to pick up more victories. They started to do a lot better before the division, before the season kind of waned away from them. You know, once they realised they're not going to get playoffs, they've not really got much to play for, the results, as you can see see here did die away. And I think this kind of last stretch of 10 games here, the form that shows, is one of the main reasons a lot of people are writing off FC Dallas. They've lost some huge players as well in Jesus Ferreira, Paul Areola, and maybe one or two others, and Soke Tafari. But what's been quite clear to see, looking through all the formations and the tactical approach that we expect Peter Lusson to adopt, it's going to be a 3-4-2-1. And this is a formation that I think really does paint itself in well for SO5 scores. Having defenders that are going to be asked to make blocks and clearances and tackles and interceptions. It's just going to be very good for all-around score, of course. But then having a midfield and an attack that are going to have to be on both sides of the ball very effective. If you can nail who's playing for this team week in, week out, who are the main players, who are the main movers and shakers, I think this FC Dallas squad offers a lot of value. And there is a lot of players in here that have been around the block once or twice, and they've shown that they can definitely carry their weight. They can definitely carry the can. They've got a great goalkeeper for MLS in Martin Pais, a great striker in Peter Musa, and they've brought in DP signing from Cincinnati, Lucho Acosta. Now, Lucho Acosta for me is a one-man wrecking ball. All of these scores here are absolutely phenomenal, and especially for Cincinnati, he was an absolute hero. He was a standout. But I think one thing that's kind of been lost or forgotten about with this is, yeah, Cincinnati have been good, but they've not always been good, and when they weren't that good, Lucho Acosta was still putting them on his little back and carrying them over the line to some formidable scores and performances. And with him being put into this 4-2-3-1 system, I think we're going to see a very good, a very motivated as well Lucho Acosta, who could he replicate all of these scores entirely? It's really hard to say yes for certainty, but it's very easy to imagine he's going to be breaking 75s, he's going to be breaking 80s on the regular. When you've got a key striker, also a DP like Peter Musa, as well as an okay little supporting cast here, there's definitely a differential play to be had with Dallas. This is actually a squad that you could buy like 10, 11, 12 players for. You might not use all of them that often, if ever, but there is a lot of promise in this squad. You've even got the likes of Paxton Pomykal, who is forever injured. I do like the look of this little Pedrinho buck. He signed for them from Flamengo 6 months ago and has been playing in the second team, North Texas or whatever, for the last 6 months, getting acclimatised. And it's a much lower level of football, but his goals and assist numbers have been through the roof. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a bit of a breakout season. Never mind guys like Patrickson Delgado, if I can say that. My favourite, the boy, Sebastian Lletget. And then even like the top 5 defenders they've got here, Osaze Urhoghide, Lalas Abubakar, Marco Farfan, Shaq Moore, Sebastian Ibeagha. These guys are all very well versed. Maybe not Urhoghide, he's quite new to the league, obviously just signed. But these guys, you know, if you look at their track record across the last 4 or 5 years in MLS, it's quite consistent, it's quite solid, and they all do have their moments in the sun. But with Dallas, it is going to be about how many goals they keep out, how many games they win. But compared to a lot of the other clubs that are in MLS, like, for having such a strong DP, the rest of this Dallas squad I think is very undervalued and very overlooked. Looking at who's available on instant buy at the moment for limiteds, there's not anyone that's like super expensive. I think Peter Musa and Martin Pais do rank amongst some of the best individual cards in the league. But when you're looking at the rest of the squad, the rest of the could-be's, the guys that maybe make up a bit of a difference, they're all quite nominally priced. And I think, you know, when it comes to MLS, that's one of the key parts of this, is having lots of options, lots of variety that doesn't really break the bank, especially at this point in the season. When you look at the price of Musa and Pais, for example, the better players are very differently priced to the run-of-the-mill guys. But some of the run-of-the-mill guys can still be super effective. And if you know the squad you're looking to build into, guys like this Pedrinho for a $5, Sebastian Lletget for £7, Leo Chu, formerly of Seattle Sounders. Some of these guys, Lalas Abubakar for £3. There could be a very good squad, a very good budget kind of roster here built out to complement and support that big DP play in Lucho Acosta. Now, I do want to say before we move on to the rest of the squads and the rest of the strategy that I do think the primary strategy for a lot of the squads that I'm looking at here is you probably don't 5-man stack Dallas or any of the other squads that we're going to come to look at, but you're looking at somewhere between 3 and 4 of a core stack, and then you're going to go and find a kicker card from another team in the league. And if you can have a few of them to cycle round and pick your moments with fixtures, that for me is going to be the optimal route to success in this one. And I think the Dallas spine, the backbone here, is definitely one that on a budget, as a differential, is very much overlooked. Now, on the absolute opposite end of the scale, in terms of manager from Peter Lewson, we have got who I often affectionately refer to as the MLS, as the North American Sir Alex Ferguson, is Bruce Arena. Big Brucey boy is back for another shot, and as you can see, his honours list is significant. It is formidable. This guy has been in North American football, soccer, MLS, the national team for 3 decades or so, give or take, and he has been there, seen it, done it, won it all. Supporters Shield winner with the Revs, of course, not too long ago. Supporters Shield winners with the Galaxy back in the day, as well as with DC United. Actually, with DC United being the first American club to win the CONCACAF Champions League. He's won a bunch of MLS Cups on top of those Supporter Shield, and he's also won an Open Cup. One thing Big Bruce Arena is known for is just being effective in the division. I remember when he took over the New England Revolution, and to a lot of Sorare managers, the Revs have been like a good team. They've been up and in amongst it. But prior to Bruce Arena, the Revs were a non-entity for about 10, 15, 20 years, despite bringing in guys from Europe, Americans that had, maybe played like lower level Bundesliga, and then, they're coming home to retire and have their swan song or whatever. And it wasn't until Bruce came into them and really, added in Carlos Heel and maybe one or two other players that they really kicked up a level. He is now the manager of the San Jose Earthquakes. Now, San Jose have been the top meme club in MLS for a number of years now. MLS has got a real parity across all the teams, as I mentioned to you before, but it's also always felt like San Jose are just like a level down from everyone else. They've really, really struggled, and they've relied on veterans for a long time to keep them kind of afloat and give them a little bit of X factor. But this transfer window, I think they've been more active than ever. I think with Bruce Arena at the helm, the squad, you can feel it is starting to become much more capable of being competitive in the division. And I actually think that there's a strong, I know I just mentioned the kind of primary strategy here for these stacks, maybe a 3 or a 4 and find a kicker card. But I actually think because of how this team is built, San Jose might actually have a 5-man stack playable in this, because the goalkeeper, Daniel, and then the primary defender here, Rodriguez, are definitely guys that are going to be scooping up lots of all around. It's just going to be a matter of how many goals they concede. Do they get the clean sheet with Rodriguez, or maybe one of their defenders, if you fancy one of their guys to do okay, do they get a double-double or a triple-triple? But once we move out of goalkeeper and defence, because there's not many goalkeeper defence combos that are kind of that solid that you could get some really formidable scores from. If you're not too sure what I'm talking about, with Rodriguez here, he's been a pretty good scorer. No two ways about it, pretty handy. Last year, for the last couple of years as well, San Jose also had a Brazilian guy by the name of Nathan, and he was very capable of breaking 80s and 100s on huge defensive performances. So we have some track record there for that. And when you've got a good, capable goalkeeper, I think that's the kind of beginnings of something here. But their midfield actually has a lot of really good SO5 MLS options. Hernan Lopez, Christian Espinoza. Espinoza is the big finger cross one for San Jose and their hopes. But Hernan Lopez, Mark Anthony Kay, and even Ian Harkes, all these guys are like handy midfielders that, again, looking at the price of them all, it's very, very nominal. And if you can see when they're catching form and when they're coming into the team, then they can make a big difference. Mark Anthony Kay is really an experienced player who's won MLS Cups. He's been around the block, Canadian international, and I think he'd be my favourite to partner Espinoza here, although he's not as peaky as some of the other players across the division. But when we look up front, there is some fun options here. Kikanovic, I'm not too sure how much of a role he's going to play this year. And Amal Pellegrino likes to take some set pieces, but isn't really a nailed-on starter. Is maybe a bit more of a wild card player if other people are suspended, injured, if he really rises to prominence potentially. But between Christian or Cucho Arango and Joseph Martinez, they have fox in the box, they have finishers, and it looks like they're going to be playing as a duet up front, which could be really spicy. But it also does give San Jose the option to maybe go with one up front and maybe rotate them, so maybe that then opens the door for a Pellegrino or some of the wider players to get some action in this. But genuinely, between Arango and Martinez, if you think of them as even just one forward position, if they were to rotate, Espinoza, and then you wrap these 3 midfielders in as being like one guy essentially for your SO5 lineup, and you're picking who's the best or who's in form or whatever, and then you've got a solid defender and goalkeeper here. Now, the instant buy price on these guys isn't terribly appealing, especially with the injury record of Joseph Martinez here. But by and large, I think when these guys are hitting the auction market, they're not going to be much more then yeah, maybe around half price of what we see there on Instant Buy. Rodriguez looks to be going in an hour from point of recording for around the £11 mark. Christian Arango under the £25 mark. Christian Espinoza under £10 at the moment. Let's see where that rises to between now and the close of auction. But this is the sort of strategy where if you can be on the auction block and you can be really cute and clever, get your bid in first, because the way max bid works, it's more advantageous to be the first bidder rather than the last bidder, because of just the way it works. And because San Jose are so far behind the 8 ball when it comes to the overall standings on MLS, when the auctions do come thick and fast for all of the clubs around there, these are definitely players that will be overlooked on the auction block, and other Sorare managers will be looking for more established, more premium players, more reliable players perhaps. But I think the Bruce Arena factor is definitely not been factored in here, and I think it's a huge factor. I think San Jose will probably make the playoffs having Big Bruce in charge with the firepower at their disposal. Now, between the last two managers we've looked at, we've got a new manager who's been in the league for a little minute, and he's now got his first pre-season, his first transfer window, etc. We've got a veteran manager coming back into a new franchise to put his stamp on things, very busy and very active in the transfer market. But the next one is one of the longest standing currently in position managers that we have in MLS, and this is a manager that I've always been impressed with for the achievements that he's had, not just at his current club but at his previous one. And really, no matter what's going on, his team always do seem to be just about in amongst it, no matter how good or how weak that they seem to be. And I'm talking about Oscar Parejo for Orlando City. This guy has won 2 US Open Cups, one with Orlando and one with Dallas. He's also won at the Supporter Shield with Dallas about 10 years ago. Orlando won at the MLS is Back tournament, which was like the post-COVID in the bubble kind of thing. And this is a guy that's been at Orlando now for like 5-6 years. You know, he's very much in between the wallpaper and the wall. The squad is his. It's got his identity all over it. And the transfers, like they've just lost Facundo Torres and, you know, 1 or 2 other players. And you find in MLS, when you've got a consistent, a consistent man at the helm, a consistent hand on the wheel here, that, you know, riding those choppy waves becomes a bit easier. IDing replacements can be a lot more prolific. You know, it actually works out a little bit better, as well as those domestic transfers that happen being a bit more on the money. They actually pay off a little bit better. And when it comes to SO5, Orlando kind of have a little bit of everything of what you'll be after. The goalkeeper Pedro Galese is one of the best keepers in MLS, SO5 wise and IRL. But the caveat with him being the Peru #1 goalkeeper, you kind of need to buy the backups, because there will be a period where he goes away for international duty. And if you want to have the Orlando goalkeeper position, you will need to buy his #2, whoever that might be. They are quite light in defence, it must be said. Brekalo is expected to be the partner for Robin Janssen. Robin Janssen is a fine centre-back for MLS. He's not spectacular, but certainly, I think fine is round about it. He does have some peaks and whatever. But the rest of the defence is a bit meh. It's a bit, you know, there's not much there, to be honest with you. And before we go into midfield and attack, with that in mind, one of the things that I do love about Orlando when it comes to SO5 is that they don't get mugged off. You know, Orlando, although their defence is quite crap, they've not got any like really good defenders in here. As you can have a look throughout their scores, like nobody takes them to town really. Like they've lost here 3-0 away to SKC. A bit of an outlier if you ask me. Kind of full strength team there, isn't it? But I say beyond that, like nobody really mugs them off. They've lost 4-2 here to NYC. That's a little bit of a derby if you ask me. But so many of their games are actually quite low scoring. If they do lose, there's maybe 1 goal in it. They're very happy to score 2 or more. It's very much a common thing. And yeah, they've not been perfect. They do lose. I'm not getting away from that. But they're a team that have got a really good home situation, very vibrant fan base as well. And the whole squad has a real Central South American vibe to it, especially when you get into the forward lines here. Sadly, there's no Kaká or, you know, anyone like that in the squad these days. But when it comes to midfield, they actually have a lot of really fun options. Between Atuesta, who has been a boss, a top 5 MLS midfielder in the past, and there's every opportunity that he can do that again. You then add in Ivan Angulo, Martin Ojeda, Cesar Araujo, Wilder Cartagena. There's a few guys in here that have been there, seen it, done it, can put in some good scores. We've also got the newcomer, Marko Pasalic from the Croatian division as well, as veteran Nicolas Ladero, who will be super cheap and will probably play 10-15 games across the season. And it's really up front is when I think that this becomes a bit meh. Ramiro Enrique is probably going to play the majority of games. Luis Muriel is probably going to come off the bench for the majority of games. And Duncan Maguire is kind of been shopped around the league. So although injured at the moment, maybe he's not going to hang about, and if he does move on, maybe Orlando can bring in another forward to reinforce their ranks here. But I think Orlando offer a lot of really good midfield options in here. I'm a big fan of the goalkeeper, and I think once you get the goalkeeper, you need to get the backup, and you probably need to get Robin Janssen, maybe Rafael Santos, but I'd rather go with the centre-back security there. And there is only really one forward to look at in terms of Ramiro Enrique, and he's probably not going to do you very much. He's probably not a striker you can rely upon in your first team in your best lineup, but some of these other players could be for sure. Pedro Gallese on instant buy, quite firmly the most expensive keeper that we've seen so far, and a lot of these other guys are kind of in amongst that same price point that we've seen for some of the more expensive players in the league. And as you can see, there's not much of a row here on the more expensive instant buys. If we have a look at the auction house to see exactly how guys are kind of trapping price-wise at the moment, we see Brekalo, who could be a sneaky one to come in and play, only £1.30. Robin Janssen, again, in season for him, under a tenner, could be handy to have. Angulo, Harry Trades is unique that he won last year. This guy's quite handy, by the way. And I could see him being undervalued in the market because he's not a star name, he's not a DP. He's a midfielder card. I've heard Harry saying before he would rather him as a forward. I think that would have helped Orlando for someone like him to be a forward card. But I think compared to instant buy, you'll get a lot of these guys on auction, and particularly a good bit cheaper. And then the next manager I want to kind of have a look and profile at is a kind of halfway house between almost everyone that we've looked at. He's been there, seen it, done it. He's kind of at a new team. The team's kind of good. The team's kind of got some guys. There's a few bits and bobs going on. You probably know him. You've probably heard of him. He was in the news a while ago for quite famously being Ralph Rangnick's assistant manager at Man United, which raised a lot of eyebrows when he appointed Chris Armas, who had only been in MLS, had only been in North American football soccer, to Man United. It raised a lot of eyebrows, but this is a guy that has won in MLS already. A wee supporter shield with the New York Red Bulls. He was the number 2 as well under Jesse Marsch at the Red Bulls. He went into Toronto, didn't do too well, and then since then has kind of just been trying to, re-establish his career, re-establish his name. He's been the Colorado manager, as you can see here, since November 2023, so he's been in there at Colorado Rapids for a little while. And one of the things that I really do love about Colorado, the squad that they've got at the moment, is it's got a real kind of Native American, or like MLS, like US nationals, almost borderline college, university style team, where so many of the players are like younger, they were prospects, they were highly rated, maybe haven't quite made it across Europe or wherever else, and in Colorado they can come together and be a very formidable squad. There is some stars here without there being an out-and-out star, and one of the things Colorado have going for them as well, at home, they play at altitude. So this is a team that has a strong home advantage working in their favour. Zach Steffen, the former Man City backup goalkeeper, former US men's national team number 1. I'm not too sure. He used to be definitely number 1. That's maybe a little bit more up in the air at the moment. And then in defence, guys like Keegan Roseberry, Sam Vines, Reggie Cannon. Maybe you put Maxo into here. There's a bunch of guys like you see the L15s and all that aren't great, but they're all quite fine. And if we were to look at every one of them individually, Keegan Roseberry can do a good score once in a while. Sam Vines can do a good score once in a while. Reggie Cannon hasn't quite got back onto groove with MLS, having been kind of in the wilderness in Europe for a while, but has been in Europe, has been in the national team, has shown that he's got that potential. And then we've even got Chidozie Abazim here, who's just been traded in from Cincinnati, and at Cincinnati, he had some moments. He definitely had some pedigree where he could do well, and I do think that's one thing with Colorado, is they're quite a good recruitment squad. They know who they're looking for, they know what profile of player they're after, and that's really apparent when you go into the rest of the team. Looking at Georgi Mihailovic, Cole Bassett, 2 formidable attacking playmaker midfielders in MLS. Adding into that Connor Ronan, who's been very effective, can take some set pieces as well, as Josh Atencio, who has been a formidable, very effective midfielder for Seattle Sounders, a young prospect that they've brought through their youth ranks, who for the main part was kind of firefighting, filling in at defensive midfield when guys were injured, filling at centre back when guys were injured. And if he was to be the main holding midfielder for this team, he could realise his potential. He could become quite a good scorer quite quickly. And then up front, you've got Rafael Navarro, Calvin Harris, Kevin Cabral. There's a few kind of, there's not really an out-and-out scorer here that's going to rein in the goals week in, week out. Rafael Navarro, obviously meant to be the main guy, could do a bit of that. Calvin Harris did get some form last year. But again, this squad, by and large, is going to be seen as suboptimal. It's not going to be seen as like your LAFCs and your Seattle Sounders and all that kind of thing. And subsequently, when you've got guys like Bassett and Mihailovic you can stack together in the same fixture, know it's a good home game, that kind of thing, this is a very powerful dynamic that I do think will be overlooked. Colorado are one of the harder teams across the ones we've previewed to get a real full 5-man stack out of. The defence is a bit flimsy, up front can be a little bit meh. I like the goalkeeper on profile, but as we can see in MLS, he does like a negative decisive, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't take much for this to change, and his scores totally change as well, just to add that in for context. But there's a lot of players in here to like, and there's a lot of players in here that I think will go cheaper than they maybe should in this early access period, because there is going to be so much hype, there's going to be so much of a clamber to get in on the big superstars, into the big power stacks, to get those collection bonuses up, to get that XP up quickly. But, you know, for teams like the Rapids and all the other ones we've featured so far, they will win matches, they will score goals, they do have their own positives, and if you can really keep your finger on the pulse with the Rapids, I think you'll do quite well out of them as well. And then the last manager I'm going to have a look at is a little bit similar to where we started this with Peter Lewson. He has just been appointed into MLS, and this is a guy that has a really strong track record, as you can see here. Not really of a playing career, but of a youth coaching, development kind of situation through Dutch football, all the way through to becoming a first-team manager at Alkmaar, before going to Ferencvaros for a short stint, before being appointed at New York City. Now, I do think NYC are probably one of their weakest positions that they've ever been at the moment, but Pascal Jensen is the best coach that they have appointed in a number of years. It truly is. Since Dom Torrent, what was the guy's name again? Torrent? I can't remember his name now. Dominic Torrente or something like that. I can't remember his name now. But since that guy, New York have not had a good coach for ages, and the team has been built up of South American wonder kids. Yeah, there's not really any DPs, there's not really any more designated players really worth talking about. Santi Rodriguez is on his way out, he's away to Brazil. But this squad desperately needs coach. This squad desperately needs an actual developmental coach, a guy that can bring out the most of the youth, of the talent that they've got there. Matt Fries, one of the best keepers in the league, bar none, had some links to Holland, doesn't feel like that's going to materialise. Greg Ranjit Singh has been brought in as maybe number 3, number 2, Thomas Romero, number 2, number 3. It's hard to know what the pecking order is there in and behind. And the NYC defence can be very good at home, actually, with the stadium situation that they play in. Kevin O'Toole, Thiago Martins, Tavon Gray, they're the only defenders I'd really be looking at. Ilinic can be good, but between him and Gray, they kind of share the minutes. And then when it comes to midfield, like, Maxi Morales is going to be really cheap because he's really old. He's going to play significant minutes. He's going to play significant minutes this season. There's no two ways about it. With the loss of Santi and with the lack of any DP replacement, he's the experience. He is the X factor in the team. But we're going to see Justin Hack probably fill the void of James Sands alongside Keaton Parks in the engine room here. And then the kind of complementary midfielders to support the striker. We're looking at Hannes Wolf. We're looking at Axel Ojeda. We're looking at Julian Fernandez, who I think is now listed as a forward. If he's a forward card this season, that could be good, as well as Maxi Morales. And up front, Alonso Martinez, or Adrian Martinez as he's listed here, had a great year last year. I think he's going to kick on in a big way. And Monsef Bakrar was a real disappointment, but it feels like in pre-season, Pascal Jensen has been getting a tune out with him. Malachi Jones was a big breakout player last year and had a horrific injury, and he will be back for next year. And I genuinely think, like, there's actually a really strong under-23 squad here if you're going to play under-23s in the summer. But genuinely, like, with the expectation level being really down on NYC, with this new manager coming in, with a lot of these players already being in MLS, it's not like they've recruited this youth development coach and then went out and got a bunch of kids in the door for him to coach. They've all been there. They know the environment. They know the travel involved, the opponents they're going to be playing against, etc. I really do think NYC are massively slept on. Do I think they're going to do anything incredible this year? No. Do I think they'll score goals? Yes. Do I think they'll win matches? Yes. Do I think they've got... There's a good 4 or 5. You could probably build a full NYC stack out of this. I'm probably going to try myself, to be honest with you. And I do think because they've not got quite that same X factor that they've had in years gone by, there will be the likes of, Tavon Gray, Kevin O'Toole, Hannes Wolf, Julian Fernandez. I think all of these guys are going to be way underpriced compared to contemporaries across the division. Matt Fries, again, goalkeeper on instant buy. You can see his price there. But wow, even look at the instant buys here across this squad. They are dirt cheap, and there is really no reason for them to be that crazy cheap. I'm going to look at rares because I'm just getting greedy now. because a Julian Fernandez forward, oh, I might buy that. And what I expect to happen with NYC is, like, we might see a DP transfer coming in, but I think NYC and the City Football Group are always quite calm and composed and don't really rush into anything. So I think they'll want this guy to do a proper assessment on the squad, see what's missing, see what he needs, as well as then try and bring in some designated players, some actual, star power into the squad to then maybe make the difference, to make them super competitive in the conference, get to playoffs, etc. But again, looking at the price points of these guys on limited instant buy, never mind on auction, NYC are going way, 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 way under the radar. And like, I'm a bit biased when I'm talking about, you could probably 5-man stack some of these guys. Like, I do think O'Toole is a pretty handy left back. I think Thiago Martins he can kill you, but he's an okay, is like a good team 3, team 2 defender. We're thinking about multi-entry here. But it's the forwards, and the goalkeeper that I think make a big difference here. And when you look at how cheap the stack is, how cheap the collection can be, and how quick you could get a good collection bonus together, again, I think they're very underrated. I personally can't wait to get stuck in for MLS 2025. I'm going to be starting with a very, I don't know what the word would be. I've got a really good classic setup for MLS already, which I'm excited to play this season. But I also am aware that my classic setup isn't all bells and whistles. I'm not going to be playing to the same extent that I do with like Celtic or maybe in La Liga or Champ or whatever, that kind of thing. I'm not going to have 3 teams of absolute dominance, but I've probably got a team to 2 teams of really good strength, and then team 3 is maybe going to be a little bit of a question mark, which is all fair and good. But I'm waiting now to see some of those in seasons, some of the ones like I've maybe get a Julian Alvarez as a Julian Fernandez. Oh, I've already got a Julian Fernandez forward. I don't know why I thought last year he was a midfielder. But yeah, I might get some NYC in seasons on the cheap and go after it again, because I've got a good classic backbone here. I think I'll be able to win in season cards. I think I'll be able to grab some essence regularly enough. I'll have a limited lineup that will go out as well. So it's just about really trying to gauge how difficult the leaderboard is, how competitive the auction board is, in terms of trying to bring in some of these players as cheaply as possible. And I think for anyone coming into MLS, it doesn't matter if you've got like a classic backbone like I've got here, or if you're coming into it with 0 cards. The amount of squads, the amount of players, the amount of clubs, and how predictable the entire division is really anyone's game. If you can take a bit of time and put a bit of thought into your strategy and really try and iron out why you think this could work out well, I think there's a lot of Sorare managers that are going to have a lot of fun in MLS this year. For me, I always like adopting a new club or following a new strategy or a new squad or whatever, particularly in MLS, based on the back office, based on the manager and the transfer policy, rather than, oh, they've just signed Marco Reus, so I'm going to go buy LA Galaxy cards, or, that kind of thing. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. We made some other content on the channel over the last month previewing MLS. I'll link them on screen now in case you missed them. Like how to MLS, in case you're kind of new and you need to know about some of the quirks of the division and how the kind of thing pans out, as well as just some top beginner advice. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Don't forget to jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts and feelings on this video. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.